And Gail, I'm going to come in on another device as well. See, I'm viewing via my phone, but my full screen, I can't really access Teams on that, so I'm just going to use that to look at any documents.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we're 1 minute past, and quite glaringly obvious they were currently missing our chair, Ian Sinclair. Ian is actually off with COVID. He tested positive at the weekend and is a bit poorly, so has had to take the last couple of days off. He did try and do a meeting this morning, but he struggled to get through it without having coughing fits and things. So he sends his apologies. So so I've got the joyful role of chairing the meeting today. Woohoo! So because it's been recorded, I need to let you all know that. And if I could ask you all to stay on mute unless you are speaking or asking a question or anything, that would be really helpful. I've got somebody in the background that's going to try and take notes, but because it is being recorded, we can go back and do that for the minutes and things as well. So there's a couple of reasons why it has been recorded. That's the first one. The second one is, I think we talked at the last meeting, which was my first Caithness CPP meeting, that the video would be uploaded onto the website. So for those of you that have seen that link, it is there on the website. So this recording will go up there also. So without further ado, I think for those of you who don't know me, I think I know most of you. So I'm Gail Prince. I'm a Senior Development Manager in the Caithness and Sutherland Strengthening Communities team in High. So I work with Ian, hence the reason why he's asked me to step in and chair today. If anybody else needs any other clarification of who I am, please do let me know. Absolutely fine, no problem at all. So we'll just move on with the formal agenda, if everybody's okay with that. So I've done my welcome. I've told you that it's been recorded, and there are a number of apologies. I won't go into them one by one because there's quite a few of them, but I'll add them into the notes at the end of the meeting. So that everybody can see who has submitted apologies for today. So we will move on to the notes from the last meeting. So that was the meeting on the 10th of December. Oh, Julie, can you do me a favour? Can you tick the box to let people in while I'm talking? Is that all right? Thank you. Thanks, Julie. I'm only picking you because you're in the top left-hand side of my screen at you saw first. Thanks. So from the minutes from the last meeting, I did myself notice my own error under number 10, bullet point 10. There was I must have copied and pasted something from the minutes before that. So I, just to note that mistake is there. And then there were 6 actions from that meeting that were in the little table at the end. So I think what we'll do is just go through them one by one because they are for different people. So if I call out your name, if you want to give an update or just to note that either the action's completed or not, that would be great. Thank you. So the first one's you, Alexander. So it was to send information to Steph on fuel rebates.
Yes, I'm not entirely sure exactly what that was, but I can guess that I've had similar discussions which are basically to network with the fund administrators on the renewable funds and so on. My argument was that we'd be very unlikely to get cash payments for any household in Caithness, but there are ways around. There are ways to incentivise fuel-saving devices. I think that's what I've discussed into.
Okay, thank you, Alexander. So the next 2 are Ian, obviously, who's not here today. So one was with the Highland Community Planning Partnership to raise poverty and fuel poverty in particular. I'll leave that there and get Ian to do a bit more of an update, you know, once he's back and at the next meeting, because there'll probably be another Highland CPP meeting in between times. So I'll leave that one on the agenda. The second one was for Ian to speak to Kevin MacLeod, who was Sutherland CPP's chair since the last Caithness meeting and this one. Kevin MacLeod has retired from the police force, lucky for some, I have to say. So there was a little bit of a gap in terms of the chair role for Sutherland. Scott MacDonald, who has been assigned that role, is now back from sick leave. He was off with COVID and long COVID for a wee period of time. So he's back, and he's only just been back a week or two. So in the background, myself and my line manager, Angela, and some of the core partners from Sutherland are trying to get Scott up to speed with how Sutherland works and what's going on in Sutherland. So what I'll do is in the next couple of weeks is line up a meeting between Ian and Scott, so they can meet each other and have a conversation about Caithness and Sutherland planning partnerships, working together and things. So I'll put that as a wee action for myself. Oh, I didn't know I was going to have to take actions as well as chair. Whew, it's a bit much, isn't it? So the next one is organise a community Caithness community catch-up meeting. So we did have one a few weeks ago, and there is another one. It's on the agenda for this meeting. I'll go over that date at that time, but there is another one in the diary for the end of June. So that's a wee tick in the box. The next one's for you, Alistair, to organise a meeting of the emergency liaison group. And I do apologise, I spelt your Alistair wrong, I've just realised.
No, it's totally okay. So it's still ongoing, that one. So there's been a slight change in the approach to it. We're looking to raise a complete North Highland ELG. So that'll be the ELGs across Rossshire, Sutherland and Caithness. That primary reason for that is the number of the partners and agencies that attend have responsibilities geographically across North Highland. I'm referring to the geographical area from Keswick Bridge North. So we're taking that forward in a slightly different approach, but two purposes to it. Obviously, I'd mentioned that on the back of the kind of fuel poverty issue, but there's a potential. Well, we're looking at nets failure as well, so that's a black start event, so that's a complete power outage that would affect areas. So we're kind of trying to reshape how we do the LG. So long and short way of saying it's ongoing. Okay,
no, that's great. Thank you, Alistair. Appreciate that. And the last one out of that, the actions from the last meeting, the one for you, Alan, to organise a roundtable meeting with the wind farm developers. Oh, I'm just going to mute your other device, Alexander. There we go.
Sorry, Gail. Did you mean me? Sorry.
Yes, sorry, Alan. Yes.
What, I never caught what you said.
A roundtable meeting with the wind farm developers and providers.
Yeah, right. It's still a point that we need to do yet. Until we've kind of focused exactly what our needs are, I don't want to go and kind of be a bit vague. We want to have a pretty itemised kind of list of priorities as far as the kind of poverty group. So hopefully what we are now doing, hopefully by the end of next month, we'll be near enough there to do that, I hope.
Perfect. No, that's great. Thank you, Alan. Appreciate that. So I'm just going to check that they're in the... Are Katie Matthews and Sarah Bradley in the room? Can I check? Can you both unmute and let yourselves be known to me, if that's okay?
So I'm here, but Sarah, I'm afraid, is off sick today.
Oh, no problem. Oh, you'll be presenting on your own then, Katie. No pressure. So the next item on the agenda is a short presentation by Katie, who's just unmuted herself there, to talk about the Highland Active Health Scoping Study. I know that you were going to do it with Sarah from the UHI, but obviously if she's off, then not possible. But So we've allocated about 20 minutes. I mean, it's up to yourself if you want to take that long, and we can have some questions and answers afterwards. So I will hand over to Katie and she'll introduce herself and the presentation. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks very much, Gail. So I'll just see if I can share my screen. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep, looks good to me, Katie. Yep.
Great. Okay, so yeah, first of all, thank you very much for letting me speak to you all today. It's great to have the opportunity to share the findings of the Active Health Scoping Study. Just a little bit about myself and my background. I'm the North Highland Community Sport Hub Officer with High Life Highland, and I work very closely with a number of clubs and community groups up in Caithness, both throughout Thurso and Wick. Really pretty much my remit's pretty wide. Anything to do with health and well-being or physical activity falls within my purview. So you know, if you're working on any projects in your area that either link in with the talk that I'm going to be doing today or any other activity, please do feel free to get in touch if it links in with wider health and well-being agendas. I love to hear about it. So in 2021, the Highland Active Health Partnership between UHI, High Life Highland and Sustrans conducted an active health scoping study. So I'm going to give you a little bit about the background and tell you about the approach we took, and how we had to adapt that in light of COVID, the findings and what came back through the feedback that we collected, as well as where we are now and what steps we're looking to really take to use that research and take it forward with community groups that we'd engaged with previously, as well as new ones, and how much we really need your input, feedback and support in getting the information out there, as well as making contact with the clubs and community groups and organisations who can really help to have an impact and actually get involved in where we're going. So the scoping study itself came about through a background conversation that I actually had from a network meeting between myself and Sarah about ideas and how we could find out more about what was going on around active health and well-being in rural Highland communities, and how we could look to find opportunities really to improve people's physical health and mental well-being through access to outdoor spaces. So that's green spaces such as parks, even gardens, woodlands, as well as blue spaces, beaches, canals, riversides, and also to activities that are available in the local area, and to make transport, whether it's walking, wheeling or cycling, to those safer and part of people's everyday journeys. We also wanted to look into gamification as a way to potentially help families and young people increase their own levels of physical activity, and really see if that would help them to make active health and active travel part of their everyday decision making, and provide more positive lifestyle choices for them. The project itself was actually funded by the Active Health and Wellbeing University Innovation Fund, which was identified by Sarah as she's part of the UHI Rural Health and Wellbeing team. And off the back of that, we were able to partner with Sustrans, and then went out to really link up with other partners in areas across Highland. We had to choose locations outside of Inverness, and specifically areas where we were able to identify the most disadvantaged communities. These included Wick, Alness and Dingwall, where they had target populations in the first and second decile and quintile of the SIMD and Rural Poverty Index. We also chose to look specifically at families and young people in this instance, as we felt we had the means within our partnership to be able to reach out to them more easily. And in terms of that, I was able to link up through High Life Highland colleagues such as Keith, who I think is on this call, active schools coordinators as well, and other colleagues in libraries and facilities too. We were able to identify gaps really in terms of what was out there for active health opportunities and also active travel through consulting local groups and organisations that were based in these 3 Highland rural communities. And we really wanted to make sure that we were able to reach a diverse range of service users within those organisations. So we did a bit of a community mapping exercise around that. We had planned to run quite extensive face-to-face focus groups. However, as you can imagine, in light of COVID, we had to change that quite drastically. So we did host those online. We also hosted one-to-one meetings with either individuals from organisations and also with some service users as well. And we were also able to produce a questionnaire in consultation with some of the groups who were engaging with us, which went out again to all of their service users or groups that they were supporting locally. In terms of those challenges, we were able to hold some face-to-face focus groups, but those were restricted to being outdoors only. We got back a range of results. That just gives you an idea of what came back. Of the online focus groups, those ranged between 6 to 12 people, depending on the area. The one-to-ones, we conducted 6 one-to-ones, and we also had discussion groups, which each discussion group had between 16 to 24 people in it. So overall, we did get a pretty good response rate, although, again, it probably would have been better if we hadn't had COVID looming at the time. So what we did was I've picked out, Sarah and I picked out the key findings and really wanted to make sure that the areas where we were engaging with people locally and organisations that we were engaging with locally and helped support us during the study to reach out to their service users, we wanted to make sure that the key findings went back out to those communities so that it could help to provide a little bit of insight around active health and active travel in each of the areas. And we can then start to engage with people around the next steps and where we go from there and use the data. So I'll give you just a minute to take a look at some of these barriers here that were reported to us by people. I won't run through them all. One thing I would note is that in conversation, in terms of barriers people perceived to accessing green and blue spaces, those were also mentioned in terms of accessing local activities. So it's worth bearing in mind if you're an organisation that runs local activities, some of these are barriers you're probably very much already aware of and have on your scope. But there might be a few in there that you've not come across before. Same around active travel infrastructure and gamification as well. One thing I'll mention quickly is that the organisations that we talked to, where we did one-to-one meetings with individuals representing them, they were more likely to talk about barriers as opposed to the young people themselves who we approached either through focus group work or questionnaires. This is probably due to the fact that young people and families are not necessarily seeing or perceiving all of the barriers that are preventing them from either taking part in active health opportunities or active travel opportunities on a regular basis. It might be more ad hoc. And also they might not have a definition for what those barriers are. So that was something we felt was worth keeping in mind. Organisations themselves who were working with service users seemed to be much more aware of what the barriers facing the young people or families that they were specifically working with. And again, I would say in there, we've put those at the top: lack of transport, poverty and confidence being probably the top three. We did have some limitations in terms of responses to the questionnaire. Quite a few young people, when I say young, these are primary school age, because we did do some activities around answering the questionnaire. And we did find there was quite a bit of misinterpretation, as you can imagine, around the questions relating to barriers that they felt they experienced. So just a few bits of feedback there on the actual data itself. We did put together a word cloud here based on the feedback we received and what improvements people felt would help them to access more active health and active travel opportunities in their area. There were some variations, obviously, area to area, but these were the top ones that came through overall from each of the communities that we looked at. So the main asks being improved and additional cycling and walking paths or tracks, safer crossings and measures to slow traffic, education for drivers and for cyclists, better access to bicycles, and that included cycling equipment and education, and also improved path maintenance, litter pickup and cleaning up dog mess. As you can see from this finding, the vast majority, and it concurs with a lot of other data that came out during COVID as well, the vast majority of people did feel that access to green spaces and blue spaces was very important to them. The top reasons we've highlighted here being fresh air, benefits to mental health and well-being, and for exercise and fitness. There was also clear evidence that young people and families in particular were actively looking for opportunities to access green and blue spaces. So again, that linked up with issues around things like poverty and transport, preventing them from being able to take advantage of that. Surprisingly, we did find that quite a large percentage of young people who responded did not feel that they actively travelled in order to reduce their impact on the environment. I would add, however, the survey did go out pre-COP26, so that may well have had an impact because obviously that brought everything to the forefront of people's minds. But that was what we found there from the survey. A number of respondents travelling actively for everyday journeys already, vast majority walking, cycling, and that's really only increased due to COVID, and shows that there's really a strong demand for the improvements that have been picked up on in the feedback from the scoping study, and that really sort of pushed our case for really trying to put together a pilot project that would use the findings and help bring together the key improvements that people had expressed an interest in seeing to actually boost opportunities for people and overcome the barriers that were identified. In terms of gamification, we had pretty even split in terms of those that felt it would benefit and increase people accessing active health opportunities and those who didn't. Key apps that people tended to use were the likes of Pokemon Go, followed by Strava, and also geocaching. Some of you may or may not have heard of those. The organisational responses were interesting, a little bit different. They were, I would say, organisations themselves were more interested in using tools that could potentially encourage their service users to be more active and access green and blue spaces. But there was some concern about whether that would be also a distraction from their own service or from being in nature and just being mindful when they're out and about. So in terms of where we go from here, as I mentioned briefly, there is clear evidence coming through from the study that there's a need for improved opportunities for people to access active health and active travel infrastructure and activities that are already happening in the area. We also believe that if access improved, then this in itself would also lead to additional active health opportunities being cropping up or occurring. So really, one of the things we wanted to do was looking at interlinking infrastructure and opportunities in order to have a bigger impact for people in their local area, which is very much around looking at things like 20-minute neighbourhoods. So if you've heard of things like the Scandinavian model, that then around physical activity for children and young people in particular, but also then linking into families and older adults, is about making those opportunities more accessible within a smaller radius within communities. So that's very much where we felt we needed to look at. That also ties in very much with the fact that it's clear to see that the benefits from all the fantastic work that's going on are not always getting through to the most disadvantaged groups. And in fact, there's widening health inequalities as a result of COVID that very urgently need to be addressed. So again, we felt there was a strong call to action really as a result of the scoping study and just where we're at now within our communities, region, and also nationally. There's been strong interest from groups that we've consulted with previously to potentially be involved in a future pilot project. We are hoping to link that in with priority outcomes for the Active Highland strategy, as well as Active Scotland outcomes framework. So if you feel it also links in potentially with what your organisations are doing, we would like to hear from you. So that's really the next part of what I want to do, is just basically put it out there and see if we can have a bit of a discussion within the people that are here. I know there's quite a lot of people, so we might need, I don't know how best to do it, if it's hands up, to get everyone to basically make a wish on how they could improve active health projects in Caithness. So if we start with that first question, please, and any suggestions that people have for that.
People can either put their hands up or use the chat box, either or, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Gail.
Carl, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks very much, Katie. Really enjoyed your presentation. There's some pretty clear messages there. It was really, I was thinking, having read today's agenda and the various reports, it strikes me that we're heading in the right direction, very much so, so I take a lot of encouragement from that. I guess I didn't quite catch what your question was. Is it a wish for Caithness? Is that right? You can just shake your head, or?
Yeah, so basically it's about breaking down any perceptions of boundaries that you guys have within your current organisations and current thinking. This is the buzzword blue sky thinking. Okay, so think outside the box here. What one improvement, if you were just going to pick up on one thing, what do you think would have the biggest improvement to either existing active health projects or a future active health project to allow more people to overcome the barriers that have been identified in the active health scoping study, and really access opportunities around physical activity, get outdoors, get into green spaces, get into blue spaces? What do you think would have the biggest impact and make the biggest difference? So it's fine if you're going to be specific to your own user groups, for people that you work with, or if you're going to be even broader than that. That's what we want feedback on.
Okay. I guess for my own initial thought is when I see pilot areas, good to understand there's work on this thing, well, but you know, so I was immediately thinking how we can support you in making these positive things happen across the county, you know. So that was my initial thought. I'll take a wee bit more time to think and let someone else speak meantime. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I'll pop on the other two, move on to the other two scenarios then, in terms of the biggest, what do you think would have the biggest improvement to people being able to access active travel opportunities in Caithness? So it's the same, just focusing now on active travel. We have had mention and feedback from organisations locally in Caithness around an active travel corridor. So we're already aware of that, as well as individual hamlets and village improvements on active travel, as well as coastal. So we've had a real range, broad range, all of which we are taking to the Highland Council, who we're currently in discussions with around infrastructure improvements alongside active health project opportunities and improvements as well. So it's about putting these things together and linking them up so that all these great projects that are happening locally don't reach a, you know, glass ceiling, if you like, because the active travel infrastructure is not there on a local level to allow them to go to that next step or to link up with other things that are happening. That's what we want to see. We want this link up to happen. So it's really getting from yourselves, the people who are here today, and representing the people who need these improvements the most, what's going to help to make that happen.
Jan, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking on the blue one as well. I was thinking, you know, safer cycle paths, safer cycle routes, you know, to the beaches and from village to village and villages and houses to green spaces and things like that. Safer cycle paths. I mean, because of course we've got the potholes, but we need more cycle paths for people, for the kids to use their cycles, get them out away from their laptops and machines. But also on that in Wick area, we have no our three of our play parks have all the equipment's been taken away, so the kids have got to travel quite far to get to a play park. The parents have got to drive them there now. The Bignell Park, the Grizzly Park, and the Coach Road Park, all the kids' equipments have all been taken away.
Great, thank you, Jan. Alexander, you've got your hand up.
Yes, a lot of it's pretty much what Jan was saying there. I think as far as the cycle routes, I assume that's what you meant by the active travel routes. I was speaking to George Ewing, and he had a wish list of an active travel route or cycle route between Wick and Thurso along the back roads. And it's similar in Thurso with a lot of the play areas. The equipment is either being removed because it's Highland Council owned and maintained, and it has to come from their base level of payment, or it's just falling into disservice. And the most popular play areas on this side of the county might be Castletown or Ray, in which parents would take their children out, and that's okay for parents with a car, but many won't. And you see in the shall we say more down at heel play areas in Thurso, even when a unit's fenced off, children are still playing around it, and they're still trying to create their own entertainment, and sometimes they might grow frustrated enough to use a piece of equipment which has been technically out of service. Also improved bus routes within town. And I think I think we've lost a circular route that used to go around Mount Vernon, and that disincentivises the elderly or people with mobility issues from not using a car or a taxi. But even some of the upcoming renewable firms have intimated they'd be willing to support community bus schemes. But again, that would require engagement from members of the community. I'm aware of one fund which got pretty much full funding for a community bus and even to employ a driver, but they could not find a driver, so they had to hand all of that funding back. So even though we need to engage with the statutory agencies, we also need to engage with members of the community, and we have to accept responsibilities as various communities in Caithness. We have to do something rather than expect everything to be done for us. That's it.
Thanks, Alexander. And finally, Wilma, you've got your hand up as well.
I do. I'll just put on my camera and my mic. Yeah, just something that's often come into my mind. Previous to this job, I was an active schools coordinator in the Alness area and did a lot of bikeability with the primary 6, primary 7 children, and much of it playground based, but it was the sort of starting point for them with their skills, life skills on their bikes, and then we brought them on to do road training sort of when they were ready for that, which is a great scheme. It involves training volunteers to help run the programme. I don't know what happens with it nowadays, if it's still, in some areas I think do it, but maybe not all. But I've always thought, you know, we do that at that stage, and then there's sort of, you just let it go. But I think there's measure and going back to it with teenagers because they lose confidence, they sort of grow out of the bike they have, and it just gets lost. So I know having bikes, you know, is an expense and something, you know, that is difficult for a lot of people, but that could be overcome with a bit of commitment and a bit of determination to help people get bikes. But I just think in the sort of maybe S2, S3 stage, again, of secondary school, it would be good to revisit that with teenagers and build up their confidence again in being active, whether it's for independent travel or whether it's just for mental health and well-being, to have fun. But it would involve, you know, training volunteers to help run that programme, and who would take the lead, I don't know, but I just think it would be a really good thing to do everywhere, not just in Caithness.
Great, thanks Wilma, appreciate that. And that's everybody with their hands up. Katie?
That's great, thank you. So I've just popped up mine and Sarah's contact details there. So if there's anything else, anything you've maybe not been able to feed back today or would like to feed back to us in your own time, please do feel free to do that. As I said, we're taking forward all suggestions, not just ones that are focused within the study community of WIC, although that is probably, you know, we're hoping to make a start in one of the study communities with our pilot project with the support of the Highland Council, but we want to go beyond that. So that's why we feel anything we start with has to link into the feeling that's there overall within each of the areas that it's based in. And just to say, Wilma, that's a great suggestion. Thank you for that. I will be going forwards with that to a few people through the Community Sport Hub to see if I can get legs on it, or should I say pedals on it. And I'm also looking at starting up a Kit for All project, because I'm working on this Highland wide. So if anyone thinks that their organisation could potentially be involved in that, that's about getting kit and equipment for any children or adults that need it to help them to access any type of outdoor or physical activity opportunity. We're not just talking about sports here. Please do get in touch with me and let me know, because it's something which I think, again, could have a massive impact, not just in Caithness, but Highland wide.
Katie, sorry, butting in there, Katie, but are you aware of the Alness Kit project?
Who does? Is that the Pulteney Town? is that a different
No,
one?
and sorry, the Allness kit project.
Oh,
in Wexford.
yes, because I worked
yeah.
with Aileen. I got her.
Cool.
Got her on in a Sports Scotland article as well as using her for a podcast. So yes, very
Excellent.
much so. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks very much, Gail.
And just to bring your attention to the chat box as well, Katie, there's a couple of comments in there. I know Naomi and Carl's put a couple of things up as well, so don't miss those either. That'd be great. So thank you very much appreciated. If anybody else has any other questions, let me know quickly. Otherwise, Katie, if you could send me a copy of the presentation, I can send that out with the notes and stuff. That would be helpful. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much again, and just to go off piste slightly, I know in the agenda that I circulated there was a note of Katie and Sarah's presentation. We actually have an extra visitor today who is going to talk through just a few minutes on the agenda as well. About the Together We Care strategy and the consultation that's going on with NHS Highland. So I'd like to welcome Fiona Hogg to her first ever Caithness partnership meeting. Fiona is the Director of People and Culture at NHS Highland and will maybe give a bit more of an introduction than what I've just done, and will share some information, like I say, on the Together We Care strategy. So welcome, Fiona.
Thank you very much, Gail, and I'm glad to be here. As I say, this is my first meeting, but I intend it to be a regular attendance. So you may be aware that NHS Highland is keen to strengthen its participation at an executive level in the community planning partnership. So we all had the opportunity to join one of the partnerships, and although I don't actually live within the Highland Council area, I spent 10 years growing up in Wick, so Caithness was my first choice. So I did leave in 1988, which makes me probably older than I would like to think, but still have a very fond recollection of Caithness. So I say my job within NHS Highland is Director of People and Culture, which always sounds very fancy. It's basically, a lot of people say, covers off our kind of HR, but also communications and engagement, health and safety, occupational health, and our board and executive administration. So quite diverse. But as a group of executives, we very much are involved in all of the strategic elements of NHS Highland, so they don't just keep me in a box. I'm allowed to be interested and engaged on everything that we do, not just the people stuff, which is good. But it was quite an opportune moment because we have had one round of consultation on our Together We Care 5-year strategy, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity of a captive audience just to give you a very brief flavour of this second and final round of engagement, and also to sort of promote some of the more in-depth sessions that are coming up, because I'll also, as well as the online sessions, I'm actually also going to be up in Wick and Thurso next week, as well as those sessions, so I can share that with you. I'm going to attempt to share a couple of slides, and I will be quite brief because I don't want to give away all the exciting information that you'll get if you come to one of our other sessions, and hopefully I will share the right presentation, which is always important. Here we go. Now I'll just put that into presentation mode and ideally start on the first page, not 2 or 3 pages in. So I say, Together We Care, and one of the first changes that we've made since our first iteration of the strategy went out for consultation at the back end of last year is that we reflected a lot of the feedback that we got in incorporating with you and for you. So it's very much a partnership approach for us in terms of how we deliver services. So quite incredibly, I suppose, in some ways, this is really our first ever long-term strategy that we've had in NHS Highland, and so it covers a 5-year period from 2022 to 2027, and obviously at the start of sort of thinking about this, we've also been had the challenges of a pandemic, and I suppose the major health kind of debt, I guess, that's built up as a result of that pandemic on top of the challenges we already had. But really, our aim here is about putting people at the heart of services, and a focus on health and care, asking what matters to you, not what's the matter with you. And it's really all about us working with all of the different kind of partners and agencies and individuals to shape the services for the future, so we can be there when you need our support. And I thought, just in terms of that previous engagement, we've got some stats around that. So we had engagement from all age groups, but the 45 to 60 age group, you'll see there probably represented the largest majority there, followed by 25 to 45. Obviously, our workforce was a large part of the population that we engaged with. And actually, I suppose one of the things about the kind of organisation we employ 10,500 people across NHS Highland, and that means that a large number of our colleagues are also our service users and our population as well. But we did also get good engagement from the broader population, community and third sector, and where it sort of says none of the above, typically that's just because we didn't capture that information in the engagement. And there was quite a stronger kind of female response. Again, some of that is probably made up by the fact that our workforce is, I think, around about 80% female, so that will influence that. But I think one of the reasons this is important to understand is in this sort of second phase of engagement, where we've made some really quite substantial changes to what we're doing, we're really keen to make sure that we hear from everyone, including maybe some of the underrepresented areas from before. I thought it might be interesting for this group as well to sort of see the locality responses, and I think across the various, you'll see Caithness there at 119 responses. Where we talk about out of area and anonymous, typically that is where it wasn't possible to capture from the inputs where people were from. And obviously Inverness had quite a significantly higher range of responses, probably again driven not just by population sizes, but by the fact that with a large workforce response, quite a lot of them will at least be based in Inverness. And again, these are some of the things that we were told in our first round of consultation. These are sort of, we love a word cloud, and so these are some of the key sort of phrases and words that came up, you know, and talk of locally available services, compassion, mental health and care in the community, and that reduction of inequality all came through. And so what we will be consulting on in terms of the next iteration of the strategy does look and feel quite different to what we went out with, and that is as a result of the engagement. And this sort of infographic, it's quite a busy one, but this is where we're just trying to almost put everything together that we're thinking about. So we've got 3 core commitments in the strategy. Our mission, which is to anchor with communities to support their health and well-being. Our vision, which is for outstanding care delivered by an outstanding team. And these are all underpinned by the 4 values, which are the values of the NHS in Scotland. And what we've done with our objectives is we've got 3 areas of objectives. So these are for our population, for our people, which refers to our workforce, and in partnership. And underneath that, we've got 16 strategic ambitions. And of those ambitions, the first 4 sit under the population ambitions. The second 4 sit under the people ambitions, and then we've got 8 that sit under the partnership. And the way that we, once we finalise the strategy, and we're still very much open to kind of additions and tweaks and changes in how we're describing things through this next phase of consultation. But once we have got that agreed, we will create a delivery plan, and that will be delivered through our sort of management and governance structures, to make sure that, you know, a strategy isn't a plan that sits on a shelf. This will be sort of woven through everything we do as an organisation and how we manage our performance, and elements of it will absolutely change over time, because nothing stands still. The other 2 areas on here are about our foundations. So these are the enablers to the plan. So we'll be looking at patient experience and quality, our financial plan and procurement, how we communicate and engage, and the principles of realistic medicine. And then with the sort of future focus, we're also looking at digital delivery, the role of research, development and innovation. Sustainability and climate change is really a significant theme that needs to run through that. And looking at our estates and infrastructure. And as I said there, the strategy really is all about, with you and for you. Now, I'm not going to go through these in detail, but I just wanted to sort of, and if anybody comes to one of our online or in-person sessions, we'll go through these in a little bit more detail. But I say each of these 16 ambitions has its own definition, and then below that will sit another 3 objectives that will be sort of fleshed out into a specific delivery plan. But this, our population objective is really about delivering the best possible health and care outcomes for the population. So promoting healthier lifestyles from the start to allow our population to thrive and stay well by actively addressing health inequalities, listening and responding to our population at all stages of their lives. And this role is an active anchor in creating resilient communities. Our people strategic objective, which is one that obviously I've sort of been quite heavily involved in, is all about making this a great place to work for our people, which is about planning and attracting a sustainable workforce, supporting colleagues to grow their careers with us, listening to and learning from experiences, and nurturing health and well-being, and all of that done in an environment of trust, respect, and valuing difference. And then the third area is in partnership. And so this is really the core of the strategy is working through partnership to transform and to integrate health and care. And this is about continually improving and transforming the quality of how we treat, respond and care for our population when they have mental or physical health needs to allow them to live well. Working in partnership to create integrated services for all life stages, supporting an ageing population to live as long as possible with their independence and to end well together. And so that's just a little bit more about that. So last couple of slides here. So in terms of our approach to implementation and the timeline, obviously 5 years seems like quite a long time, but actually, with some of the pieces of work we do, they'll have to, stretch well beyond that in terms of their completion. But generally, we're looking at what we can deliver by 2027, and we sort of see ourselves going through this. The initial part of this year. Or the rest of this financial year will be around creating firm foundations and plans for the future, and then transforming our services to enable better delivery. And then by about 25-26, we'll be looking to really improve and get better on what we've delivered, and our ambitions and actions by 26-27, we would hope that we would be into that sort of best phase. So we've just kicked off this sort of engagement process that will basically run right through June over the next 4 weeks. We've got online consultation events, face-to-face events. We can also, for any of individuals on here who represent groups that have a particular interest, you can get in touch with us and we can set up a dedicated session with you to go through and get feedback. We can take, we've got a dedicated email address that I've popped up there. There is also the ability to give feedback by post. We'll be also doing press releases and social media, and we've got now this when I send the presentation, for some reason our settings don't show the full web address, but it is a hyperlink here, so I'll send that out through Gail. And we've got a dedicated page about the Together We Care strategy, and so as and when new events are added, you can see them there. I say if you want to contact us and arrange a dedicated session or find out more or just give feedback, you can email the dedicated website. And these sessions, the links to these sessions should work through the presentation to actually join it, but these are also on the website. So there are so far 4 virtual sessions, and you don't need to pre-register or anything for them. You can just click on the link and join through Teams on the night. So the first one is actually this evening, and then we've got other ones, and we've tried to sort of do these at kind of different times that suit people. And specifically from a Caithness perspective, I will be at the Pulteney Centre from 1:30 till 3 on Tuesday next week, and also I'll be at Stepping Stones in Thurso from 9 to 10 on Wednesday next week. So and I say there may be additional sessions that get put in both virtually and in person, but I was sort of keen, knowing that we were kind of meeting today, I was keen to make sure we had those Caithness sessions set up for you. So I'll stop sharing my slides there, and hopefully I've not overwhelmed you too much with all that information. I can talk quite a lot, as you'll get to know.
Thank you, Fiona. Appreciate your input there. Does anybody have any follow-up questions or anything they want to ask Fiona at this moment in time? No. Oh, Carl's waving at me.
Sorry, there's a wee bit of delay in getting my hand up. Thanks, Fiona. In your first slide, the green one, was it realistic medications you mentioned? I've never come across it. It'd just be good to get some info on that. And then it also touched on social prescribing. Can you just give us an idea where we are with social prescribing in Caithness? Because we certainly discussed it in the past. I'd just be really interested to hear more. And then just one more question then. I think it's really fantastic, and it was good to hear you using the title "Communities in Place" because it's self-evident where that can go. But just wondered if you've had any interaction with the Northern Hub. Northern Hub is, they work in conjunction with a recent agreement for investment in our health and social care hubs and whatnot. So it would just seem logical to have you tied in with them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. And I might have to defer on a couple of things to come back from people, but certainly and if any of my NHS Highland colleagues are on that can kind of advise better than I. But in terms of realistic medicine, yeah, it's an approach that that we talk about quite a lot, and it's really about trying to sort of treat the whole person and not just a medical diagnosis. So working with that individual to go, yes, there is potentially a treatment that you could have, and but actually, is that what you need? Is that what you want? How is that going to affect you? And really trying to make sure that we use medicines in an appropriate way and in a sort of person-centered way. Social prescribing is not something that I am particularly close to, although I'm quite aware of it, and it may well be something that I can ask when I come back from here. We could maybe ask for a specific update around social prescribing and how it's being rolled out, unless my colleague from Public Health, who I can see in front of me, is able to shed any light on that. Naomi, did you want to?
Yeah, sure. I can come in. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yes, so in terms of social prescribing, Carl, it is something we're looking at within the Caithness redesign. But as of what can be done now with the introduction of community link workers into the practices, that is really how we're going to develop and build on social prescribing. So it'll be specialists who will be linked into a GP practice. Patients will be referred to them, and they will look at, just like Fiona was talking about, realistic medicine. What can we do within the community to support you? So would it be a referral to befriending Caithness or getting involved in the walking group, volunteering, that sort of thing? So it is something we're looking at. It's just the community link workers programme has been a wee bit delayed, but they are in post and should have started by now.
Thank you, Naomi. And I'll follow up with you on the Northern Hub piece as well, because I'll need to just check into that for you. But thank you.
And Katie, I'm going to guess you've got a follow-up comment, maybe like to what Carl was asking as well.
Yeah, I do. Thanks very much, Gail. It was just to see if people were aware of the Green Health Activity Day, which Ailsa Villagas is organising through Thurso Community Development Trust on the 25th of June. So that's due to happen on Saturday 25th. There's going to be a variety of activities and stands as well, with representatives from the local area. And there'll also be various activities, walks, including like walks around the town. I know there's going to be a treasure hunt done as well, all again geared towards active health and active transport. And that's partly because the Caithness Active Health Activity Group is one of our steering groups for the Highland Active Health Partnership.
Great, thank you, Katie.
Thanks.
So I don't see any other hands up, so just to thank you, Fiona, for your input, very much appreciated, and welcome to Caithness Community Planning Partnership. We look forward to having you involved and attending our meetings and being involved in discussions. So thank you for volunteering yourself to be part of our group. Much appreciated. Okay, so we shall move on with the next item on the agenda, which is the Caithness Poverty Action Group update. So Alan, I've got your name against that, and people might be wondering why it's not Steph's name against that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Yeah, Stephanie has left CBG for a new job starting today at Thurso Community Development Trust, the Climate Hub. So, regretted teeth, I will say congratulations to her. So it kind of leaves us in a bit of a sticky wicket at the moment, but we'll work through that. So I've been at most of the meetings. I can give an update on what the poverty group are currently up to. If that's all right, Gail?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
thanks, Alan.
Yeah, so like I say, the focus at the moment is all around the cost of living crisis. That there is ongoing work around campaigning, around the cost that we pay for energy in the north compared with other areas. There's also investigations into expanding the district heating scheme in Wick. So these points are all ongoing and kind of more medium to long term. But kind of the focus at the moment is to support the most vulnerable, especially next winter. So this may include a greater provision of free food, emergency support with fuel bills, easier access to income maximisation and energy advice. So like since April, Stephen has been doing a lot of work around mapping what support services are available and what is needed going forward. It's certainly becoming clear that COVID has had a significant negative impact. You know, all the lunch clubs that operated in the county prior to COVID have not restarted. Lots of activities no longer happening. And that, along with the price increases that we're facing come October, do not leave us in a good position to support the most vulnerable at the moment. Stephen has also done a survey with the schools to see what the support they require. I've got just a few stats from that survey. I think 9 schools have responded to date. Just a few, I've picked a few out. 87% want more support around income maximisation for families. 75% want more support around free school uniforms. 62% want support to provide healthy snacks at break time. Again, 62% want support with the provision of gym clothing. And I'm quite interested in what Katie was saying about Alness, so perhaps I could maybe try and get more information around that, because this is something that the schools are highlighting. So there's lots of work to do. Stephanie's been in touch with all the schools, as I've said, supermarkets, lots of community groups. So I think at our next meeting, we need now to identify priorities and also consider what funding might be required. From my point of view, what would look like success in the short term, perhaps in the next 6 months? 3 or 4 lunch clubs restarted, with those attending being able to get support around food, around benefits, around better health, more access to free food, especially in rural areas, working with schools and nurseries to support the needs they have identified. I think that all would be positive. So as I say, Stephanie's left for another job, and we do hope to recruit a new officer, but I need to finalise funding. I need somebody to come in with high to fund these posts, so we'll be looking to keep working on that in the next few weeks and hopefully have somebody in post as soon as we can. We're also looking for a new chair for the Poverty Action Group, and we've asked whether any of the councillors will be up for that. So I'm waiting to hear back, but quite hopeful that we'll have somebody quite soon. So the next meeting is June the 16th at 10 AM. So that's a very short overview of where we're at, Gail, but you know, if there's anything people want to ask, I'll go and phone Stephanie. I'll come back to you.
Thanks, Alan. That's much appreciated. And I think you touched on the kind of strategic conversations that we've been having in the background just at the end there in terms of, you know, the chairing and the priorities of the group and what that's going to look like going forward. So I think that'll be kind of a main topic for discussion on the 16th of June, and that kind of role and remit and how that all fits together, and how we take the group, what the group looks like going forward. So thank you, Alan, appreciate it. I know you've been stuck with the update because Steph finished yesterday, so appreciate your input.
Worse than that, I'm stuck with the work at the moment as well.
Well,
but,
that's true.
which is even worse, because even this morning we've had lots of emails around this, what's it called? Let's see what it's called. There's a scheme that Highland Council have got, Summer of Hope, which is around supporting kids in the summer holidays with food. But I've been in touch with the Youth Club in Wick and Thurso and so on. Heather at Caithness Community Connections had heard about it and been in touch, but nobody had been in touch with the youth clubs in Wick and Thurso. So it's all last minute. We're in the beginning of June. I think there's about 10 million in the pot, and at the moment Heather's getting a lot, unless we can get
Heather will be delighted with that.
Yes, well, it's paid.
Stop sending the emails.
What was that, Heather?
I'm telling them to stop sending any more emails. I'll just take a pen now. It's no issue.
So that's just peanuts to you anyway, Heather. But no, so there is lots of things happening, and we need to work together. You know, that's an example. Highland Council have got money to support, and they're identifying the kids that are the most vulnerable to get them support over the summer holidays. So we need to make sure that Caithness gets a fair share of that. So.
And I think that kind of goes to the role and the remit of the Poverty Action Group, and making sure those statutory partners are involved in those conversations to share that information and to bring that information to the table, and you know that we get the right people there to make sure that the community is informed and the community can access that without this mad dash at the very last minute, and you know that kind of behaviour that quite often happens. So yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Alan? Oh, Alexander, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, yes. Do you have contact details for the Summer of Hope? Could put it to the community cafe.
Yeah,
they're getting a new kitchen installed next week. Yes. Yes, and one thing I know it's becoming an idea fixie for me, but not to raise unrealistic expectations over what the wind farms could do. There are lots of ways around it to incentivise and to pay this. One thing that just incentivise energy saving devices rather than cash payments. But one thing that just occurred to me, just trying to think, going back over the notes. Yes, and also with the community cafe, amenable to breakfast clubs and lunch clubs. If you remember, during the pandemic, the Hawkirk Fund provided school meals for school packed lunches for children at the Hawkirk School, but also for Hawkirk pupils attending Thurso High and also at the ELC at Miller, because they were within the Hawkirk catchment area. So there are ways around it, and I know there's a clause in many of the wind farm entails that as long as it primarily, as opposed to solely, primarily benefits the residents of that area. So it said in the document, opening dialogue with the wind farm developers, but they are all there. And I think I saw Ailey Cole on the list, and she might be able to give more specs about how Foundation Scotland could help with that. Yeah,
certainly. Like Alex, I'll certainly pass that details about the community cafe. I think there is a discussion to be had with the wind farm benefit funds. It's Caithness Poverty Action Group, so we're Caithness wide. I personally, I don't want to get involved with a whole lot of different wind farms covering little areas that are only part of the county. We need to be county-wide or not, or out, I'm out, so to speak. Yeah, it has to be everybody. So we can have that discussion. If that's not the way it goes, then right, we move on to something else. But we're not getting involved with little pockets of money for little areas, because that's just too much and not sustainable in any way. That's kind of my thought anyway.
That's a good train of thought, I think, Alan, and I think that's a fair point. And you've sparked another couple of hands going up, so we'll cover those quickly because I'm conscious of time and we've still got 2 or 3 items on the agenda. So, Joan, you're up next.
I'm just going to add in very quickly from a conversation that I had earlier on today with possibly large electricity supplier that looking for strategic kind of direction, so very much strategic. So echo completely what Alan said, is we're not going looking for little bits and pieces other places, you know, from little places. We need to be strategic, targeted, what's also going to provide skills development, what's going to provide long-term support and things like that as well.
Could I come in, Gail, just for a second? Just,
of course.
It's not like me to be nice to Joan, but especially when she stole one of my staff members. But to be fair,
no
to Joan,
in the room, guys. Come on.
Yeah, but to be fair to Joan has said that there might still be capacity with Stephanie to do a wee bit on the poverty work. So that is much appreciated, just to get us over this kind of little hurdle.
I'll cancel that bit out of the recording. That's fine.
No, we're all quite friendly. We're all pals. So.
I will just add that, yes, I'm very committed for Steph, for her work for the Hub, that she can continue doing what needs to be done for the Caithness Poverty Action Network. It's very much still within the remit of what her job would be with the Hub. And also, we are going to have this battle between myself and Alan for the next 5 years, I'm told. So get used to it, folks.
Yeah. Coming from Kyla Sutherland Development Trust, who've poached a few members of staff by High. We've had that in Sutherland as well for a while, so yeah, you have to get used to it. Carl, sorry, I'm aware your hand is up also, so if you want to join in the fun, please do.
I'm just glad that Kirsten made up at the end. Really, Joan touched on what I was going to say, but I think the message was to Alan, you know, particularly in regard to energy, Alan, I mean, it's horrific what we can expect and know that's coming down the line. So I really do think we've got to be strategic at a regional level, if not national. You know, we've really got to start having serious conversations and working collaboratively, you know. So it'd be good to get a chat with you, Alan, when possible on that topic.
Yeah, well, Carl, just give us a shout anytime.
I'll do that.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay, if we're all covered on the Poverty Action Group, we will move on to Julie's update with Caithness Cares, please. If that's okay, Julie?
Yep, that's fine, Gail. Thank you. Hi, everybody. So I've got quite a list to get through. So first of all, this last month, May, we're in June now, can you believe it already? We marked 1 year of the handover from the Pathfinder project into Caithness Cares. And we marked that occasion with a milestone event. We thought it was a bit too early to start having a celebratory event, but we did want to mark it as a milestone. And so we came together and held a digital event, and that was just to spread the message that we are still working on the plan and that Caithness does care. So you'll know it's Caithness Cares, so we did a bit of a twist on that, and just to echo what we all know, and that Caithness does care. We're all working here today because we care. So that was tied in with the Mental Health Awareness Week in May, and then from that there was a document produced and fed back to the group, which just gave some figures about how many people we reached and the different cross postings and things like that. So one of the important things is that we share each other's work, and again, talking about networking and working together. It's, you know, we do that really well. I'm often told from people elsewhere that Caithness is, you know, renowned for doing that. So it was really good to see that in the digital space. So today we're at the action plan has 19 points, and there are different categories. So there's a red, green and amber. The top priorities, there's 5 of them. The first one is about recovery, and that is to work with Centred, formerly known as Birchwood Highland, and that's about developing a recovery college. And the recovery college purpose is to support people on a mental health and substance use recovery journey. So again, it incorporates lots of different aspects of the community. It's about helping to support people, recruiting peer-to-peer support workers, a whole heap of work to be done, and a lot of it is underway. So a lot of planning. There's also a steering group that's attached to that. So I'm part of the steering group, but other people are very welcome to join. The next meeting is on the 9th of June. It's held online, and it's good to have the steering group to reflect back some of the progress and the ideas and things, and then we get an opportunity to we don't make decisions, but we just feedback, you know, what we think about things, and it's like an open discussion. So that's really helpful. So that's the recovery, the collaboration side of things. Then there's a recovery crisis support. So recovery obviously featured quite highly in a lot of the feedback that came through the Pathfinder project, and crisis support was high, particularly as we're going through a really difficult time in the county. Where we're at right now is obviously there's a lot of action or activity in the recovery community. They are brilliant at supporting each other. And we want to extend that, and just, I think from their perspective, they'd like to improve the referral process. So it's a bit hit and miss, and we just want to improve that. So we can do that by sharing information about what is available locally. So there's a national helpline, and once you get through to that national helpline, you are immediately pinged to a local person. You get that support from day one. Within hours, you'll get that support, and then they work with them, and you know, the relationships that are being built over years and years. So it's really good. Obviously, there are other things. People can go to the GP and other services and activities. So it's about just ongoing relationships and making sure that we listen, keep listening. And I know I was speaking to one person the other day, and they're really keen to get involved again in the work with Centred. And I think that's another opportunity, again, connecting the work with the recovery community, but also highlighting the work that's going on with Centred, because some of them didn't have a clue that that was going on, but they would be ideal peer-to-peer support workers. Going back to that model, the idea is that they'll be trained, but then there's an opportunity for them to be recruited in employment, which is again a great model. So that's the 2 aspects of the recovery, 2 of the 5 priorities. The next one is the Icelandic model. We've all been hearing about that, Planet Youth, and we were delighted at the last meeting actually to get the results from that, and to see exactly what is happening right now with the young people. And then the next phase is obviously to come up with some action plans. So again, it's happening this week and in the coming weeks. The next thing on the list is the employability and skills development. That featured highly again. You know, there's a sense of there's nothing here. Employers will say that we can't recruit. So there's a real mishmash of opinions and ideas and thoughts about this. So the mapping stage has been completed. Alan made a good start on that, and just looking at all the initiatives that are involved in trying to recruit or trying to mentor young people, look at skills development and preparing them for work, interviews, CVs. And it was really clear actually that there was a need for a network to work together outside of Caithness Cares and just look at things closely, look at the way that the different groups work together, the way that they refer, at what age do they start to look at work experience. So there's a whole heap of stuff in there. So there's a dedicated group, a network now set up. The next meeting is on the 22nd of June, 10:30. We're looking for a chair for that group because obviously it's quite a lot to to manage and to take forward. And at the next meeting, hopefully we'll build on the SWOT analysis that was conducted at the last meeting, and then we can take forward some actions. And then finally, the fifth of the top 5 priorities is access to services, including 24/7 support. There's been a few developments since we first included that in the plan, in that there's a new digital counselling service called Cooth. There's also Shout, again, digital support. We've got now the link workers and the GPs, or we're getting there with the link workers and GPs. So although these are not 24/7 support in person, we are making progress. There was also a meeting last week with HUG and the Joshi project. I'm not sure if anyone went along to that meeting, but it's, you know, the ambition to have hubs within Highland where people can go any time of the day or night, whether, you know, feeling isolated, whatever the background, and you'll find support, a cup of tea, and then they'll act as a triage system where people might have a bed and might need a bit more intensive care and support. So again, that's further down the line. I think they're planning on the first one, piloting it in Inverness, so we'll be behind. But we are, you know, the discussions are there, and we're looking and exploring that. So the Caithness Cares plan is up to 2024. So although we don't want to delay, we want to try and make things, you know, these things happen. It's really important. It's kind of going through the processes and looking at the best case outcomes for that. So that's number 5. Then at the end of this month, on the 30th, we're holding a digital community event. That's one of the twice yearly required events to feedback progress to the project board. So the project board was everybody that was involved in the Pathfinder process, and also to the community, because obviously there's, you know, we've got a huge amount of work that we're all involved with, but we need to be able to feed that back to so everyone knows what we're doing. We're going to be partnering with Scottish Recovery Network for that. And we're inviting people to join a conversation cafe to discuss what matters to them when accessing or requiring mental health services. And one of the outcomes of that is to have the mental health priorities of people with lived experience reflected in the new NHS Highland Mental Health and Learning Disability Strategy. So that's really quite a good thing for us to do, to collaborate with Scottish Recovery Network. There will be a follow-up to that as well. So although this is a digital event, we are hoping that the conversation cafe will be held locally in person, which means that hopefully that will spark a new chain of events, conversation cafes, just to keep that dialogue going and making sure that things are being shaped according to the local needs. Then finally, just ahead of that, we're having some planning meetings so that everybody, as I said, there's 5 top priorities. We'd like to include people to give updates and reports back to the community, which is really important. Going, I suppose, in the background of all of that, because there's so much going on, we had a presentation from Sally Amor talking about trauma-related activity training, and that's an ongoing conversation I'm having with Sally too. There was some question about, you know, are we trauma-informed? Are we really working together? You know, what do we know? I think within the individual organisations we probably do get that training, but how are we sharing that? So this is an ongoing topic for us to consider. And then also delighted to hear that High Life Highland are recruiting youth workers, and they'll work in you know, different roles to build on some of the actions in the plan, which is really exciting. And again, something that, you know, is great for Caithness Cares, because we can say that the plan is showing evidence, providing evidence for funding. So that's really good. And we look forward to hearing the plans and, you know, what they're going to be doing a bit more. And just to finally pick up on the little bit about, so in the plan, so that we've got the top 5 priorities, but there are others. And a lot of that is about safe spaces. So obviously the youth workers will be involved in that. active health, which, you know, it's great to hear Katie's presentation earlier, which again feeds into some of those things. The conversation earlier with Alan, just to highlight the CPAG stuff and Caithness Cares stuff, is we feedback on Here for Caithness on the website Here for Caithness. So Here for Caithness is a community, it's funded by coastal communities, and it started off with the Aspiring Communities team, the second round. But really it's a community project, so everyone that wants to be included in that is involved, and it is a social prescribing platform. You know, we know that practitioners are using it, we know that counsellors use it, we know that people refer to things, they look for all of these activities. So just to say that that's where, if you want updates on CPAG, Caithness Cares, that's where to go. But again, if you have things that you'd like highlighting, we'd love to have you on that platform. I think that's all. There's so much going on, there really is, but and which is really good, which is great. You know, lots of things all coming together at the same time. But it's a busy time, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Julie, much appreciated. If anybody's got any questions, put your hand up now or forever hold your peace. Wilma? If you want to unmute, Wilma, that would be helpful.
Well, unblank myself as well. Sorry, I'm chatting away here to myself. Just to follow on from what Julie has brought up there about the Highland Coastal Communities funded project with High Life Highland. So we had our interviews on Monday for these youth work posts, and we appointed. So we're just in that process now of getting them into start, but we obviously have to go through PVG processes and everything, but that hopefully will not take too long. And then we'll see that project up and running, hopefully in the not too distant future. We are a wee bit further behind than we'd wanted to be, but that's just life. But yeah, all good, really exciting. Great sort of looking brief to the project. It's sort of in place, working with all the internal High Life Highland partners, as well as obviously these members of staff will be reaching out to the local partners like yourselves in the next few weeks to engage with you to make sure that the young people who will benefit most from this project will get these opportunities.
Great, that's a really good update. Thanks, Wilma. Appreciate that. And Carl, you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Julie. It really is incredible. Just a breadth and scope of what you're all doing. And I mean, it really is a partnership in that sense, you know, so just, I guess, congratulations. Julie touched on, we were both involved in I think it's a local coalition group, and it's described as in regard to Planet Youth consultation that was done. It was, if we can just remind ourselves, 5 schools across, secondary schools across the Highlands, and I think the results will be made public very soon, but it's really encouraging. But encouraging thing for me is thinking in the context of where it all began, which was in Caithness. And when you listen to conversations across Highland about how we can tackle it, it very often feeds back. People say, "Oh well, you know, it's the good stuff that's going on in Caithness." So I guess it's just giving you all a pat on the back. Keep going. You know, there is some great stuff, but I think we're particularly when we think about actions that we're going to develop. I was really encouraged to hear people speak about practical measures, even with licensing. You know, where we're speaking about how we can maybe prevent exposure for kids to a younger age to alcohol and things like. So there's simple things that people are beginning to discuss now, you know. So I think it's really encouraging for me. So just a well done, folks. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. And I'll echo the well done as well, Julie. So thank you for the update, much appreciated. If nobody else has any other questions, I will touch on the other item that's under Caithness Cares, which is probably my own error when I put up or designed the agenda on the child's plan update. I've put Julie's name against that, and I guess in the background, Julie was doing a little bit of a question about, oh, where's that at, and you know, what progress has been made on the child's plan for Caithness. So I recognise that actually should sit with Highland Council to have an update from them. So maybe between now and the next meeting we can kind of get something together from either Angela or Jackie at the council, and we can have a bit of a conversation around the child's plan and where it's at and what progress has been made. I believe it's kind of sat for the last couple of years with COVID, where they haven't had much focus on it. So let's revisit that conversation and bring that on if that's fair. Alan, you're going to correct me. Oh, great, thanks.
No, well, I suppose the only thing I could correct you about is probably it sat before COVID as well.
Right. Okay.
But is there an active child's plan in Sutherland? Just so
there is.
There is. Who does that? It's
Jackie Hutchinson that leads that and leads that conversation. So I believe Jackie covers Caithness as well, and I think that's who Julie had a brief chat with initially.
That's good. Well, hopefully then she'll start doing some work in Caithness as well.
Yeah, so I think if we put an action against Jackie because she's not here, then I think that's fair.
I've said enough. I better go now. Bye.
Thank you. Michael, you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, thank you. I've noted CBG's contribution to this meeting, and I'm well aware of the work that Stephanie's done on CPAG, and I was also aware of the fact that the work in CPAG increases every meeting we have, and there's possibly, a job just there for someone to just deal with that. So obviously that's not any of my business. But what I'm concerned about here is that, we had a children's plan. I don't know what happened to it, but we got a statutory partner responsible for that. What happened to the adult plan? What happened to the locality meetings? Where's all this gone? It seems to me that we've got into a situation where, we need to just sort of say, where's the future for Caithness Planning Partnership? Because the community's here, but needs to be more input. And this, as I said regarding CVG, there needs to be more input from statutory partners. And there needs to be discussion. I know later on you talk about Community Planning Partnership Board update. And they cancelled the meeting before the elections. Now we've got new councillors, we've got a new leader of the council, and I'm hoping the planning partnership will look to that and show a bit more direction and commitment than they have done over the last year or two. Now I appreciate COVID has knocked a lot of people out and it's had its effect, but we need to be getting together and reinvigorate this planning partnership and look at the things we were doing before, look at the things we can achieve. And I think the biggest thing out of this is a lot of people are very weary. I'm amazed what Julie does. Absolutely crams it in and still positive and that sort of thing. So we need to have more partnership and more cooperation so that the load spread than it is at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. And I think just on the child's plan item sits with Highland Council. So there's one kind of correction on the agenda that I'd put as CVG. So, I think we're making baby steps towards that. I think the next CPAG meeting, there'll be an opportunity to kind of look at the role and the remit as well. And I think Fiona's input today from NHS Highland will certainly, or I said certainly there, that was a bit grand, wasn't it, Fiona? Will hopefully help in terms of NHS Highlands input and support of the partnership. So there's progress being made, I think, Michael, as well. But I take on board your points. I probably need to do a little bit of investigation to understand the adults plan side of things and the locality plans from Ian's perspective as chair of the partnership, you know, obviously we're all very aware I've only been post for a wee while, so maybe to get that kind of update from Ian at the next meeting might be the best thing to do. I wouldn't want to speak for him, but like I say, we've made some progress on the child's plan, and you've put your hand back up, so I'll let you speak. Thanks.
Yeah, just another couple of things. I mean, rural transport has to be right up the top there. We had an item earlier, and that's very much connected with rural transport. Yeah. And also, I can't remember who was speaking, but there was a mention about 50%, I think, of people didn't think that this was a climate change issue. And I was absolutely, if that's the case, I was horrified. So climate change also needs to be high on the agenda for the partnership.
I agree, and I think at the last meeting, I touched on the structure of the planning partnership and talked about thematic kind of meetings going forward. So I think that's something that Ian and I are quite keen to do. That's something that we've been doing in Sutherland for a wee while, and it kind of works. So actually under the date of next meeting, I was going to propose a theme under there, which I'll touch into a couple of things that you've just raised, Michael. So I appreciate your input, and I see where you're going. The strategic conversation of transport links into, and climate change links into what Katie presented on earlier, and you know there was obviously a barrier there in terms of what they've identified through that piece of work. I think it was the young people didn't see active travel as the as a climate, you know, impacting climate change. So Joan, prepare yourself for date of next meeting is the hint I'm going to give you right now. So appreciate your input, Michael. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to raise just now before I go to Carl, who's also got his hand up? No, you're good. Okay, thank you. Carl?
Yeah, look, Michael's points were really valid. Can I ask that you arrange or make one of your actions to engage with Max Sutherland, our ward manager, so that Ian can come along and badger the councillors?
Yeah, we've got that in the background. Carl, Mac and I have had a conversation, and it's either going to be Mac, myself, myself, Ian, Alan, or a combination of one of the three of us will come and present to a ward business meeting to, you know, update on the planning partnership and to have a conversation. And we talked about this on the phone a couple of weeks ago, Carl, about how the councillors and the partnership can work better together. So it's in the pipeline. I mean, if Ian wouldn't get COVID, that'd be helpful. But yeah, definitely, Mac and I have had that chat. So yeah.
Fantastic, thank you.
No problem, thank you. Any other comments or feedback on that? Great, good. Conscious of time, don't want to keep you too much longer. So the Caithness community catch-up item on the agenda, the date is there, the 29th of June at 11 o'clock. Just wanted to share that date with everybody. I'll do the calendar invite and the Teams link and everything to everybody now that we are in June, because I don't know where the year's going. So I will get that out. And again, that'll just be that kind of informal conversation and catch up like we had last time. It'll just be an hour. If we were in person, we'd have coffee and cake, but feel free to, you know, bring your own coffee and cake to the online meeting. That would be fabulous and welcome. Which will swiftly move us on to the Highland CPP board update. Ian's not here, so I can't cover that item by myself, I'm afraid. So again, if there's any burning issues from the Highland CPP update, I can circulate that on Ian's behalf. Michael, you made a very good point that the meeting pre-election was cancelled because, you know, there was changes going on. So I'm not sure where they are in terms of the new councillors, the new leader of the council being in post. So there might be an upcoming meeting. I'm not informed enough or aware of anything at the moment, but I can certainly get Ian to update as and when. And again, touching on your point, Michael, that maybe we'll get some direction and, you know, that kind of priorities and things like that from a Highland perspective to support us at the Caithness level, which would be great. So going into AOCB, before I open it to the floor, and you all put your hands up one after the other, because I know you've all, or hopefully some of you have some items. I've got 2 items I'd like to touch on. So for those who don't know me, I like to be in control of a room. So I'm just going to go with me first, if that's okay. The first one I wanted to touch on was Kirstine, what's Kirstine's surname? Kirstine Campbell. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the organisation's name. Sent me over a wee 1-page update on women's health. Women's Health North Highland, which is it looks like a kind of group that they're working on pulling together and working in partnership. And I can't find my bit of paper now. Oh, here we go. Working in partnership with there's a menopause cafe in Caithness going on, North Highland Women's Health Support Group, Women's Health and Wellbeing Hub. Looks like they're going to work towards a constituted group. So I was going to circulate the paper around the contact list just to share that with everybody, because Kirsten couldn't make the meeting today. So I will take that as an action for me to do. So if it, mind you, if anybody else has got any other updates on and knows what I'm talking about in terms of that, feel free to put your hand up and share. That would be fine. No? Okay, good. And then the second item is Ailey from Foundation Scotland, who wanted to share a bit of information about the Pentland Floating Offshore Wind Farm consultation. That is not rolling off the tongue very easily, Ailey. So I'll welcome Ailey for a few minutes just to share a bit of information about that. And if you have any slides or anything, Ailey, let me know and we can get them circulated to the group as well. Thank you.
Hi, thanks very much for having me along. And you're right, it doesn't roll off the tongue, so I won't bother to repeat it and I'll just call it the consultation. For anyone who doesn't know, Foundation Scotland kind of specialises in channeling money from the people who have the money to the groups who want the money. We also tend to specialise in smaller projects. We sometimes do work on bigger projects, but small projects are very much our baby. My role is all around the wind farm funding. I managed to have an argument last week with somebody who was convinced that there's not a single person in Caithness in employment because of wind farm. And I was saying, well, there's me. And they're saying, no, you can't possibly be. And I said, yeah, full-time, funded entirely through wind farms, but it didn't go down all that well. We look after, I think it's 6 of the wind farm funds in Caithness and very, very few in Sutherland. But the one that we're looking at just now, the Pentland Offshore Floating Wind Farm, the fund area for it is going to span the entire north coast. So starting in the Dunnet and Canisby Community Council area and including Castletown, Thurso and all the way along to Durness. The fund area is actually based around high school catchment areas rather than community council areas. It's the Thurso High School and the Far High School. There's a lovely map online that I can ping you a link to, but we extended the areas just slightly to be inclusive of any community council area which was looking to be cut in half, because that didn't feel right. So that's why it's all of Dunnet and Canisby rather than just the bit that is on the Thurso catchment side. The only thing that's really set in stone about the fund is that it's going to be a climate smart fund. The developer really wants that to be kind of up and centre. But aside from that, nothing else is set in stone. So the consultation is live, it's online, and you're all feel free to fill it in or ping it on to anybody else that you think might be interested. I've sent it out to 100 different people so far. It took days. What else might you need to know about it? There will be some chats, informal chats, and probably some group get-togethers as well to chat about what people want to do and achieve. Of course, the other thing to bear in mind is it's a scheme that doesn't yet have planning permission, so it's at the moment all speculative and it's being referred to as a potential fund because obviously without planning permission nothing will happen. I do have one other thing that I would really love to announce because it ties in really nicely with something people were talking about earlier, but the meeting's being recorded and the developer have a really strong media team, and they will want to go public. So maybe when I'm able to go public with that, I could hopefully pop back and tell you all about it, or even just circulate some sort of bulletin, because I'm really sitting on my hands not saying it out loud, and it's a bit on the frustrating side. But that's it from me. Just a quick gabble through, and I'll ping you on a link so that you can all have a look at it if you're interested.
Can't believe you're going to leave us hanging there, Hayley.
I know.
Come on.
If I could.
If you want to put the link in the chat as well, that would be great. And I don't really know how to follow I've got news, but I'm not allowed to tell you news. So yeah, thank you for that. Has anybody got any questions for Hayley, apart from asking the obvious one? Alexander?
Yes, it was. I was looking over the consultation, and it's one thing I was a wee bit unclear about. It is going to be for all of the North Coast from Milwith to Groats. Is it still is the proposal still that the Caithness West Community Council would have a higher emphasis on the amount of funding it could receive, with the other community council areas having less or a reduced amount? Is that do I understand that correctly?
So the Caithness West Community Council area is the host community council area. So they've been defined as the priority area for the fund, but what exactly that means is not yet been defined. It could be the scenario that you've just described, where they get some sort of ring-fenced pot that is only available to be spent within that area, or it could work out kind of different to that. There's a number of different ways that they could be considered the priority area. What we don't want to do is shoehorn something that gets shut down into, you know, some sort of agreement, and then you're kind of stuck with it. And if it's not working, then it could be hard to backpedal from. So it could end up being some sort of pilot. So the fund priority area and how that is looked at could be considered a pilot for the first year or two, and then there's a chance to review it and see how it's gone.
Okay, great, thank you. Anybody else, any other questions for Hayley while she's here? Oh, Willie Mackay.
Yeah, thank you, Gail. Listening very attentive to your meeting, absolutely wonderful. Now that you're on to wind farms, I've been associated with wind farms for 15 years. And Hayley, I'm delighted to hear that you're including that area from Dunnet, Castleton, Thurso to Ray, which is the area which receives no benefit whatsoever. There is one little pocket left in the county, which I would like you to consider. And if you do consider it, that means the whole county will be covered for community benefit. And that is Bower. Bower would be the last to achieve community benefit. Now, you did say that it was in the Thurso High School catchment area, which Bower is in. So yeah, if you would like to consider Bower, Hayley, that would be the complete county.
Consider it done.
Would be covered.
Bower.
Thank you, Hayley.
It's in Bower and also Halkirk. They're both in the fund catchment area, just because, like you say, Thurso High School cut them both in half, so it felt better to include them than to exclude them. Although you did mention the likes of Castletown being excluded, we've actually funded a lot of projects in Castletown, because it's not about the fund area ending somewhere between Dunnet and Castletown, it's the people who benefit. So if a project's happening in Castletown, but the beneficiaries come from all over, as is often the case with, you know, Dunnet doesn't have a huge lot going on. A lot of the people from Dunnet drive to Castletown to join in Zumba and yoga and youth clubs and all the rest of it. So Castletown Youth Club and Castletown Primary School have both received reasonable amounts of investment from the Stroopster Fund.
Good. Thanks, Gail.
How was that for action, Willie? I mean, we couldn't have actioned that any quicker if we tried, really, to be honest.
Well, no, it's a very hot subject indeed, community benefit, but if you include Bella, the whole county will be covered one way or other, which is really something people have been looking for the last 25 years. So well done. Thank you, Ellie.
Hayley, you can come back anytime.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other AOCB they would like to raise just now? You didn't all put your hands up. I had this anticipation you were all going to put your hands up for me. Oh well, never mind. Thank you. John, go on.
Just a very quick one is that I don't know if anybody here from any of the groups is considering, they've maybe already submitted investing in communities bids, but the Climate Hub, so I'm with my North Highlands and Islands Climate Hub hat on, we've been approached by a number of groups just in the last couple of days who are looking to embed climate action in their applications. So we are running an event on Tuesday at 4 o'clock. The details are going on to our socials in a minute or two once I've got them typed up to enable people to book, where I'll just be doing a kind of presentation for an hour about how you can embed climate action into your funding applications and the work of your organisations. It's a bit, we'll do a bit more work. We're just putting one together hastily so that we don't have to have 20 chats over the next couple of days. We can just keep it to one.
Always a good idea, Joan. Always a good idea. No, that's really helpful. Thank you. And if you share it out, then if you need me to circulate it to the group or whatever, then I can do that for you as well. That's absolutely no problem. So nobody else got their hands up. So there was one other little thing I wanted to do, and there's another new person at the table, and everybody who's new at the table is going to go, oh God, who's she going to pick on? So Matthew, I know you're smiling. I can see you smiling on my screen. So I was going to invite Matthew Thane from Police Scotland just to introduce himself for a wee 30 seconds. He came along to the possibly the CPAC. Oh, I can't remember. It was a meeting last week, wasn't it?
Caithness Cares, yeah.
Caithness Cares meeting.
Caithness
So
Cares, yeah.
I sent you the invite for today. So I don't know if you wanted, no pressure. Obviously, I'm putting loads of pressure on you to just to say who you are for a wee 30 seconds would be great, Matthew. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much, and thanks for the invite along today. There's some of you I've been meeting over the last few weeks. I'm only in the third week of this new role, so it's good to meet so many of you there, and there's a long list of people that I'm yet to meet yet. So essentially, it's a new role that's been created out with the local division, so it's part of the Partnership Prevention and Community Wellbeing Division. So essentially, the role is to support in the delivery of partnership and prevention activity in Caithness, supporting local policing and other partners surrounding the sort of public health approach into what we do and how we can do it. And another big part of that is obviously trying to engage a lot with the communities and try and create that links there to see what they want from us and how we can best work with them. And so I'm always open to suggestions and ideas on how I can get involved. Obviously, there's been a lot of work already around the partnership with Police Scotland and a lot of the groups out there, so I'm keen to sort of build upon that and work wherever I can. Certainly, if there's anyone that's in the meeting today that I've not reached out to yet, I'd be interested in chatting. I can put my email address in the chat, and I'd love to hear from you and get a few minutes of your time to chat a bit about whatever you do and how I can help with that, or vice versa.
Great. Thanks, Matthew. And you dealt with the pressure really well. Thank you. Alistair, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so thanks, Gail. Really appreciate the chair today. I just wanted to speak up a little bit on Matthew's role and kind of change in kind of philosophy from ourselves. So Carl will recall me coming to the ward business meetings back in late 2019, early 2020, and placing on record essentially what I, as the kind of lead officer for Caithness, was seeing in terms of a crisis point, really, in around the levels of violence, acute violence that this community up here was experiencing. And I paid some kind of context behind what I was seeing, no professional kind of basis, but some of the issues what I was seeing. That conversation led to quite a lengthy lead into a pub. Well, it was part public, come a partnership meeting chaired back by Councillor Rees, and ultimately led on or triggered the Pathfinder and so on and so forth. But for me in the background, and one of the points I was always putting across was that policing alone in the criminal justice system, in my humble opinion, was not solving or ever going to solve some of the issues that we were seeing here. Secondly, within that, the issues we were seeing were harm related and not crime centred, in my opinion. So campaigning across and reaching out to the senior leaders within Police Scotland, we are now where we are today, and this is a very pioneering role that Matthew has taken up. I'm very proud as the inspector that we have got this new division sitting within in Caithness. There is he's running in tandem this new post in similar to one in Tayside. So there's nowhere else in areas that we have this. So for me it's really exciting and encouraging. It'll be a different philosophy and a different approach to certain things, and there's a wider term goal. And what I'm also looking for, and I've spoken with Mark and a number of people around this forum, and particularly the chair of the partnership for a number of months into years now, about one of the themes and how the themes are developing from the locality plans, and particularly reached out to those in health who chair the adults plan, and Highland Council social work in particular who have the child's plan, about how we can more dovetail and integrate with all of this. But as I prepare to leave the area in my role, a harm reduction partnership approach is the next real drive that I want to try and achieve with everybody around this forum. And Matthew, I see, will play a fairly pivotal role in the layer that he's in there. So Gail, thanks for that few minutes. I wanted to try and speak before he did, but
sorry, that was my fault.
No, that wasn't. No, I got pulled out of the meeting briefly for an operational matter, but Matthew's put that across very well, and I've been pushing Matthew to reach out, and I'm really glad he got this invite today to put that exposure out there about the development and the investment we're putting up into the area. I feel really excited that we've got a new committee, and we'll work with the committee and try and expand on that in the coming weeks and months. And also, I think, where we're going forward with tackling the inequalities, because absolutely I'm seeing people around this table that I've spoken to from the day I arrived here, Rosemary in particular and and understanding the inequalities and the health harms that, unfortunately, from my side of the table, we ultimately, people unfortunately, come to. So just to recap, very exciting opportunity for me. It's very much pioneering. There will be time where it takes to settle in.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased that Matthew, as a person from Caithness, is the one has taken up that role, and really excited as it goes forward. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you both. Appreciate that. That was like we rehearsed that or planned that or something, wasn't it? Amazing, awesome. Rosemary, you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, just a quick last one. I'd love to have a conversation with you, Matthew. I'd love you to come along and speak to our team and hear from our team firsthand about these issues. Yeah.
Oh, great! Another action, and I saw you were having a bit of a chat with Katie in the chat box as well, Matthew. So really good to have you along here today, and you're part of the group now, so no getting away from us. So thank you very much. If there's no other AOCB, the last item on the agenda is the date for the next meeting. I will have to adjust that time slightly. I've suggested Wednesday the 7th of September at 10 AM. I'm now going to suggest 10:30 because Ian has something in his diary at 9 AM, so I don't want the two to run together. So I think what I was trying to do was, I've had quite a few apologies for today. So I thought maybe if we tried a morning meeting, see how that goes. I'm giving people 3-4 months notice. Come on, you can all, we can all save it in our diaries. We can do these things. We're used to it by now, surely. So yeah, so that's the slight amendment there is 10:30. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on, and Ian's not here to do this for me, so I'm going to do it anyway, is to propose a theme for the next meeting. Going back to what Michael said earlier and going back to the kind of conversations that we've had today, I guess the one I was going to suggest is climate change and climate action and stuff to do with that, Joan. So I did pre-warn you one item ago on the agenda that I was going to do this to you.
Just so happens, Gail, I'm on annual leave that week.
Oh, are you? Oh, that's marvellous. Well, maybe I'll rethink that. Maybe I'll rethink the theme. So I mean, we could go with the. I know, Michael, you mentioned rural transport as well. So maybe we could do something around that, or maybe young people. Wilma, will your new starts be in post? Could we maybe do something with that? Leave it with me. I'll have a chat with Ian. Can't believe you're letting me down, Joan. We've minuted it. It's recorded. Everything. Fine. Don't worry. And we will. And I will endeavour to work on a theme for the next meeting. And I want to thank everybody for today. Dead on 4 o'clock. I mean, you know, I won't make any comments about Ian's chairing because it's been recorded. And thank you all for putting up with me for chairing the meeting. Appreciate all your support and your patience with me. Much appreciated, and wishing Ian a speedy recovery, hopefully. Fingers crossed, because I don't know that I want to do this again. But yeah, so thank you all very much.
Thanks, Gail.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.